Welcome to my short presentation about the Nornir part of the first lab in network automation. I will talk about some adjustments that I made in the services YAML and in the config file and some other stuff. I will then talk about the inventory, how it's structured, what it contains. Then I will show my Nornir scripts. There are two of them. Then the Jinja 2 templates that are used to create the config files, and then I will show you a created config file from the scripts. Let's start with the adjustments that I made. Some are similar to the ones I did in Ansible, so if you've seen that video, good, but I will show it again really quick. Most of the services layout is still the same, but as before, I adjusted so that the dual home sites also contain a primary and secondary IP, because I didn't like the fact of IPs being calculated automatically because they could already be used or whatever. So I think it's better if they're defined in here. Yeah, but the rest is still the same. Then the config file, nothing special. It uses the simple inventory plugin. I'll show you the inventory afterwards. The hosts, groups, and defaults file. The runners, and I enabled login just for me, so I can see what happens. And there's also a requirements txt, which contains all the plugins used, which need to be installed. This can be done via pip install. Now let's move on to the inventory part. Again, I made an inventory subdirectory, so not everything is in the root level. And because simple inventory is used, there are three relevant files. The first one is defaults YAML, which is empty. In this project, it's not needed, but here you would define stuff which applies to everything. Then the hosts YAML, which is the most important one. There is an entry for every device, so the core routers, the edge routers, even the Ubuntu machine, but that's not needed. The important part is the edge routers. So for each one, the host name or the IP is defined. The group they're in, so I group them by type, so or device type, Linux, router, whatever. And then I use the data attributes or to define even more stuff. So for example, I defined the router type, if it's a core router or an edge router. I defined what site they're in, which makes it easy for the filtering in the Jinja 2 template. And again, the loopback, HSRP, the priority, and which IP it should take. And then in the groups YAML, here I define stuff which apply for the whole group. So the routers use the username Cisco, nothing really secret, and the platform iOS. Same for Linux, but again, that's not needed. The passwords, I did not define that in here because that wouldn't really be safe. It's not encrypted or whatever. But I didn't find any plugins I could use or something similar to Ansible was. That's why I just ask for the password in the script, so it has to be typed in when the script gets executed, so it's not saved anywhere. Now I will show you the Nornir scripts, the Python scripts that I made. There are two of them this time in the Nornir scripts directory. The first one is for the creation of the configuration files. I will quickly explain every part. So of course there are the imports that are needed, the initialization, and where I ask for the password because it's not saved anywhere. And then there is one big task which gets called down here, and only for the edge routers. And this runs the create configs task, this one here. So first of all, again, the services file has to be read in, so other tasks or the templates can access it. And it gets saved in the services data variable. Then I decided to use Napalm because it has some well-defined getters, so I can get the VRFs with network instances at the interfaces, both via Napalm get, and that is information needed to create the removal templates. Again, because this isn't a nice format, I have to extract the data. So I access these variables and get the keys. Here is the part where the templates are created. So first of all, the removal template. It uses the template file task and the edge removal Jinja2 template, which is in this folder. Here's the path. And then I need to pass it some information. So for example, the services YAML, which is saved in here, give it with .result the lists that I extracted. And similarly to the configuration, which creates the other config file, just with a different template. And it doesn't need the extracted information. And then I also have to write these files somewhere, and that happens here in the Edge configurations folder. The deletion file and the normal file are written to with the respective content. Then there is the apply script. It's built similarly. All the imports, the task that gets called also only runs on edge routers, and I decided to use netmiko. There's a send config task, so you can send the whole configuration file, and I do that right here, once for the removal of services and for adding services. Netmiko send config, the path to the file, and that's it. It handles everything. I will now show you how the scripts work and demonstrate them. So here on Edge 2, there's the config from before where we defined customer A and C. As you can see here, with the according standbys. And then I will take another router, example Edge 3. Currently only has customer A defined. And now in the services YAML, I will keep customer A, delete B, and create some new customers so we can see what happens. The scripts can be called with Python. Started with Python, Nornir scripts, and then let's do the create one, which creates the configs. You also need to define the password for the routers here, because it needs to get some information to even create the scripts for the removal. As you can see, it runs through, it changed stuff because there weren't any configs before. So we can now check they were created, and then we can apply them and see what happens. Password needed again, of course. Then it should run. Good. Got applied. As you can see, netmiko send config, and it just sends the commands one by one for each router. Now let's check what's happened here. IP int brief. Okay, cool. We got new customers. So we got customer A, C, and Z. They're up. The other one is still deleted because, again, the router needs to be reloaded, but that wasn't built into the script because it's wasn't part of the task. And let's see if HSRP has been configured. Yes. Active 4.90, 30, and 10. And let's check what happened here. Int brief. Yes, SH VRF customer C has been created. Of course, no standby because it's single homed. You can also check if the routes have been added to BGP. So with this config again, execute it before, and we have the VRFs and SH IP route star. We can see customer A and its routes management, customer C, as said, and routes it learned, BGP. And let's check what happens if we do everything again. For example, the create. As you can see, nothing changed because there were no changes made to the services file. But if we apply, it will run through and we can see, come on, that is changed through. So the commands get executed even if it's already configured on the router. So it's not really idempotent because of that. I didn't find a way to do it. I tried it with Napalm and Netmiko. Now let's check what happens when we delete something. So let's remove everything except customer A and see what happens. Again, create the templates. Bam, changed of course on most routers, not all of them. And then we can apply. Good, changed, executed the commands, and let's see the current state. So only customer A should be defined everywhere now. Int brief. Everything got deleted except customer A. Show VRF, customer A. Show standby only for customer A. Just as a check on the L3 IP int brief. Yeah, customer A and VRF, only customer A. Good. The scripts have been split up into two because sometimes you only want to have a look at the configs and not apply them. So I made two Python scripts. Now let's have a look at the Jinja 2 templates. One for the configuration, one for the removal. If you've seen the Ansible video, it's basically the same. There's a loop over the services YAML over each service and then over each site. It checks if the current site is the same as the hosts group. So if currently we are at site A and the host is in site A, the config gets created, else it's skipped. Then we create a VRF Some variables are from the services YAML, some are from the data attributes that are defined in the inventory. Then again, loop over the routes. There could be multiple. Enable it for IPv4. Then we have to create configuration for each interface. So there's another loop. We check if it's dual homed. We check the hosts, so the data value. Yeah, because if it's dual homed, some other things need to be defined, encapsulation, and of course the standby, and the IPs are used differently. So if it's dual homed, we use the primary IP if it's a primary router, secondary IP if it's a secondary router, and the actual IP, this one, is the virtual IP. So this is then used for the standby. Priority also read from the variables. If it's not dual homed, it's straightforward interface with IP and VRF. And then everything gets redistributed into BGP. And that's it for the configuration. And then the removal, same as an Ansible. I go through each VRF I get from the routers, make some exceptions, management for example, and if one of those VRFs is not defined in the services YAML, then it gets deleted with the no VRF definition. For interfaces, it's similarly, but first I have to put all interfaces from the services YAML in a list. I do this by looping over services again and the sites, and for each interface I append it to the list. After that, I go through each interface in the list I got from the router, and if one of those interfaces is not in the list above, it gets deleted. And again, there are some important interfaces that shouldn't be touched and that get ignored. And now a quick look at the configurations, the scripts created. So we have a config and a deletion. In here, there are the definitions. It's a standard iOS config file. For example, customer A with a dual home configuration, customer C, again, also dual homed, of course. And then we have the deletion file. It removed this interface, and similarly to, I can show you Edge 3, of course, not dual homed, but similar, and there deleted nothing with the last run.